Husband leaves wife and baby over child's skin color, accuses wife of infidelity. It was an autumn morning when Leah gave birth to Dylan. The delivery room was filled with contagious joy, but the atmosphere shifted drastically when Blake first saw his son. The baby, healthy and crying loudly, had a significantly darker skin tone than either of his parents. "Why does he look like that?" Blake murmured almost to himself, but loud enough for Leah, still exhausted from childbirth, to hear. "Blake, what do you mean?" Leah asked, confused and concerned, still lying in the hospital bed. "He doesn't look like me, Leah. He can't be my son," Blake said, staring intently at the baby, his eyes filled with suspicion. "How can you say that? Of course he is your son. Genetics can be surprising. You know that," Leah tried to explain, holding back the tears that threatened to fall. But Blake was adamant. "That's not possible. There's no other explanation except you need to tell me the truth, Leah. Who is his father?" "Blake, I would never cheat on you. He is your son." Leah's voice was steady, but her heart was shattered by the accusation. Blake shook his head, unable to accept the situation. "I can't accept this, Leah. I can't stay here." Without waiting for more answers, he grabbed his things and left the hospital room, leaving Leah alone with the newborn. In the days that followed, the loneliness and betrayal Leah felt were overwhelming. She knew the chances of Blake returning were slim and that she needed to make a decision for herself and her son. After much reflection, Leah decided that the best thing for both of them would be to start over somewhere new, away from the painful memories and unfounded accusations. With little savings and a heart full of hope and fear, Leah left her old life behind. She and Dylan moved to a new town where nobody knew their story. It was a chance to start over, to build a future for Dylan, where love and truth would prevail over prejudice and suspicion. Leah arrived in the new city with Dylan in her arms, a baby bag slung over her shoulder and a rolling suitcase trailing behind her. It was a crisp spring morning, and as she walked through the train station, she tried to soak in the sense of new beginnings that enveloped her. Everything was new, and despite the fear, there was a subtle thread of hope weaving through her thoughts. She rented a small apartment on the second floor of an old but charming building located in a quiet part of town. The place needed a coat of paint and some repairs, but for Leah it represented a sanctuary, a space where she and Dylan could find peace and security. In the first few days, Leah dedicated herself to setting up their new home. While Dylan slept in an improvised crib, she painted the walls, envisioning a brighter future for them both. Amid the paint and brushes, Leah felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in a long time. It was on a Wednesday afternoon, while shopping at the local market, that Leah met Audrey. She was selecting fruit when a small commotion started next to her. A woman with brown hair and expressive eyes was trying to calm a little boy who was crying because he wanted to take all the apples from the stand. "Sorry, he's still learning about boundaries," said Audrey, smiling awkwardly as she picked up her son. "Don't worry, I completely understand," Leah replied, offering a smile. Dylan, in his stroller, watched the scene curiously. The two began to talk, and Audrey soon offered to show Leah the best spots in town for mothers with young children. They exchanged phone numbers, and a friendship began to blossom. Audrey was a single mother who worked from home as a graphic designer. She was well acquainted with the challenges of raising a child alone and quickly became a source of support and advice for Leah. Their afternoons together, whether in parks or child-friendly cafes, became a highlight in Leah's life, bringing her the companionship she greatly needed. In addition to nurturing this new friendship, Leah knew she needed to find a job. With a degree in business administration, she began sending out resumes, hoping her experience would secure a position even in a town where no one knew her. The search was challenging with several initial rejections, but Leah remained resilient, driven by the need to provide a future for Dylan. Finally, her persistence paid off. Leah was hired as an administrative assistant at a small local company. The job was demanding, but offered the financial stability she desperately sought. Each day at the new job was a learning experience and an opportunity to demonstrate her capability and dedication. As Leah rebuilt her professional and personal life, Dylan grew up happy and healthy, unaware of his mother's struggles. Leah made it a point to spend as much time with him as possible, teaching him to speak, walk, and explore the world with curiosity. With every laugh and hug from her son, Leah felt more certain that her decision to start anew had been the right one. Leah was beginning to feel like an integral part of her new city. Her job as an administrative assistant not only helped financially, but also gave her a sense of accomplishment and purpose. The company, though small, operated with a dynamic and welcoming team, and Leah soon found herself immersed in its various projects and responsibilities. She strove to balance her life as a single mother with the demands of her job. Mornings were a race against time, getting Dylan ready for daycare, making sure he was well fed and dressed before rushing off to work. Despite the exhaustion, she found joy in this new routine, feeling gratified by each achievement and the progress she made at work. The company quickly recognized Leah's value. Her boss, Mr. Clark, often praised her dedication and problem-solving skills. "Leah, your ability to organize and prioritize tasks is exceptional. We are very pleased to have you with us," he said in a meeting, making Leah blush with pride. Over time, her responsibilities increased. She was tasked with overseeing other team members and managing larger projects, which required more of her time and energy. Though challenging, Leah was determined to prove that she could handle these responsibilities, viewing them as opportunities to grow professionally and secure a better future for Dylan. Outside of work, her friendship with Audrey continued to be a source of comfort and support. Audrey was more than a friend. She had become a partner in the journey of motherhood, offering practical and emotional advice. The two often shared stories about their children and exchanged tips on how to manage the balance between work and personal life. "You're doing an incredible job, Leah," Audrey would say as they walked through the park, watching Dylan and her son play. "It's not easy, but you're doing very well." Leah felt grateful to have Audrey by her side. This friendship had become a pillar in her life, especially in moments of doubt or exhaustion. Knowing she was not alone in this journey gave her the strength to keep going. As Leah settled into her professional role and strengthened her personal relationships, Dylan grew into a curious and joyful child. He loved daycare, where he made friends and learned new things every day. Leah made sure to be there for him during important moments, like daycare presentations and doctor's appointments. The evenings after Dylan went to sleep were Leah's time for herself. She used this time to recharge, plan the next day, or just relax with a book. These small moments of tranquility were essential for her to maintain her balance. Leah's life seemed finally on a stable and promising course, but the past was about to knock on her door in a way she never expected. It was a Friday afternoon. The office was buzzing with the anticipation of the weekend when Leah's phone rang. She looked at the screen, expecting to see Audrey's name or perhaps a call from Dylan's daycare. But what she saw made her freeze. It was Blake. With her heart racing, she answered the phone, her voice slightly trembling. "Hello? Leah, it's me, Blake. We need to talk," said the familiar voice on the other end of the line, now tinged with urgency and remorse. "What do you want, Blake? Why are you calling now?" Leah replied, trying to maintain her composure despite the sudden anxiety that overwhelmed her. I made a terrible mistake, Leah. And I know this might not mean much now, but I've learned things about myself, about my family that changed everything. I need to see you. I need to explain." Blake spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. Despite her reluctance, curiosity, and the need to close this chapter of her life led Leah to agree to meet him. They arranged to meet the next day at a cafe, a place where Leah felt she could maintain some emotional distance. At the meeting, Blake looked different, older, with the weight of the world on his shoulders. He began to explain that he had recently discovered that his biological father was not who he thought he was. This revelation came after a series of events triggered by his mother's terminal illness, who in her last days confessed to keeping the true identity of his father a secret. "My mother told me everything before she died. The man I called father was not my biological father. My real father was of a different ethnicity, something my mother hid out of fear of prejudice. When I first saw Dylan, I couldn't accept it, but now everything makes sense," Blake explained, his hands trembling. Leah listened in silence, processing Blake's words, feeling a mix of relief and anger. "And you think that changes what you did? You abandoned us, Blake. You accused me of something terrible without any real reason." Blake nodded, his eyes pleading for forgiveness. "I know, Leah, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. All I ask now is a chance to be part of Dylan's life. I'm not expecting anything from you. I just want to be the father I never was for him." The meeting ended with a cautious agreement. Leah agreed to let Blake see Dylan, but under her supervision. It was a small but significant step for Blake to prove that he could be the father Dylan deserved. After the meeting with Blake, Leah was left with mixed feelings. On one hand, she felt some relief in understanding the reasons behind Blake's initial reaction, but on the other, the pain and hurt caused by his abandonment still throbbed in her heart. She knew that any rebuilding of the relationship between Blake and Dylan would have to be handled cautiously and under her watchful eye. Blake began to visit Dylan on weekends, always under Leah's vigilant gaze. The first visits were tense and filled with hesitation, especially from Dylan, who did not recognize Blake as his father. Blake, for his part, showed patience and dedication, bringing small gifts and trying to engage in activities Dylan enjoyed. "Hello, Dylan. Today I brought a dinosaur book. I know you love them," Blake would say, extending the book to a cautious Dylan, who looked at his mother first before accepting the gift. Leah watched these interactions, always ready to intervene if she felt Dylan was uncomfortable. Over time, however, she noticed a change in her son's behavior. Dylan began to look forward to Blake's visits, eager to show his father the drawings he had made at school or the new words he had learned. Blake also made an effort to open up more to Leah, trying to repair the fragmented relationship between them. He shared his experiences and learnings, talking about the parenting courses he had started to attend and how they helped him better understand his responsibilities as a father. "Leah, I know I've made unforgivable mistakes. I'm trying to learn from them and be better," Blake confessed during an afternoon accompanying Leah and Dylan in the park. "All I want is to do right by Dylan." Leah, while cautious, began to see a genuine effort for change in Blake. She appreciated his honesty and his willingness to acknowledge his faults and work on them. It didn't erase the past, but it opened a door to a future where Dylan could have his father in his life in a healthy and positive way. The visits became more frequent and the father-son relationship gradually strengthened. Blake was present at important events like birthdays and school performances, always respecting the boundaries set by Leah. During this time, Leah also continued to strengthen her own support networks. Audrey remained a constant figure of support, and their conversations now included discussions on how to deal with parents who return after a long absence. Leah found comfort and guidance in Audrey's words, who always had a thoughtful and empathetic perspective. "You're doing what's best for Dylan, giving him a chance to know his father. That's admirable, Leah," Audrey would say, always encouraging. The relationship between Blake and Dylan was gradually strengthening, supported by Blake's continuous efforts to be involved in his son's life. However, the tranquility of this rebuilding was about to be tested by more revelations that would cast new shadows over Blake's past. During a routine visit, Blake seemed particularly disturbed. He requested a moment to talk alone with Leah after a pleasant afternoon in the park with Dylan. Seated on a secluded bench while Dylan played nearby on a playground under Audrey's watchful eye, Blake took a deep breath before starting to speak. "Leah, there's more I need to tell you about my family, about my mother," began Blake, looking down at his hands with a hint of hesitation. Leah, feeling a twinge of anxiety, encouraged him to continue. "What happened, Blake?" "She was involved in some illegal activities. Identity fraud, to be specific. It came to light after she passed away. I didn't know anything until they began investigating her belongings and documents," Blake revealed, his voice laden with shame. Leah felt the weight of Blake's words. She knew this could have serious implications, not just for Blake, but also for Dylan, who was beginning to build a relationship with his father. "How does this affect us?" Leah asked, concerned. "I'm being investigated too, because my mother used my name in some of her schemes. I'm fully cooperating with the authorities, but I just wanted you to hear this from me," Blake explained, looking into Leah's eyes, searching for some sign of understanding. Leah processed the information in silence. She was disappointed and worried, but also recognized Blake's courage in being honest about the situation. "What are you going to do now?" she asked, her voice calm yet firm. "I'll do whatever it takes to clear my name and protect Dylan. I don't want him to be affected by mistakes I didn't make," Blake responded, determined. In the days and weeks that followed, Blake's life was consumed by meetings with lawyers and authorities. He kept Leah informed, ensuring that his priority was to maintain as much normalcy in Dylan's life as possible. Leah, in turn, found herself once again in the position of having to shield her son from the tumults of the adult world. She leaned even more on Audrey, who became a rock of support and advice. Together, they discussed strategies to keep Dylan oblivious to Blake's legal troubles, focusing on providing him with a stable and loving environment. "You're doing everything right, Leah," Audrey reiterated in their conversations. "Keeping Dylan protected and happy is what's most important, and you're doing an amazing job at that." While Blake struggled to resolve his legal issues, Leah continued to strengthen her role as a resilient single mother. She was determined to ensure that, regardless of the outcomes of Blake's investigations, Dylan would have the calm and secure life he deserved. As the days went by, Blake faced the complexity of his legal problems while Leah continued her life with Dylan, always focused on providing stability and love. Blake, often overwhelmed by the pressure, found comfort and motivation in his regular visits to his son. Each smile and hug from Dylan renewed his determination to clear his name and build a new foundation for his family's future. Leah, in turn, worked hard to maintain a normal routine for Dylan, shielding him from the uncertainties surrounding Blake's situation. She became even more active in local events, participating in support groups for single mothers and school events, strengthening her support network and providing Dylan with a healthy and loving social environment. It's important for Dylan to feel that he belongs to a community that loves and supports him, regardless of what we are going through, Leah explained to Audrey during a meeting in the park. Audrey, always a pillar of support, agreed and helped Leah organize activities that were enriching for the children and a relief for the parents. Meanwhile, Blake began to see progress in his case. With the help of a competent lawyer, he managed to prove his non-involvement in his mother's illicit activities. This development was a relief, but also a reminder of the many hurdles he still needed to overcome. "I'm starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel, Leah. I really believe I can do this for Dylan," Blake shared with her during one of his visits. Leah, cautious but hopeful, observed the interaction between father and son. She began to notice positive changes in Blake, who now showed more responsibility and presence, even in the face of adversity. The possibility of a full reconciliation still seemed distant, but Leah was open to the idea of Blake becoming a positive influence in Dylan's life. "The important thing is that you keep doing what's right, Blake. Dylan deserves the best from both of us," Leah replied, maintaining a cautious hope for the future. Life went on with its challenges and small victories. Dylan, now older and more perceptive, occasionally asked about Blake's issues, and Leah explained things in a way he could understand without feeling overwhelmed. "Mummy and Daddy are working together to make sure our family is strong and happy," she would say, emphasizing the cooperation and love that defined their approach to life. Over time, the relationship between Leah and Blake began to stabilize into a functional partnership focused on Dylan's well-being. Blake was gradually redeeming himself in Leah's eyes, showing that despite past mistakes, people can change and improve. With evident progress in his case, Blake began to feel that he could finally leave behind the mistakes and shadows of his past. Despite the clarity that was beginning to emerge in court, the sessions were intense. Each appearance was a reminder of his mother's failures and the repercussions those failures had on his own life and the lives of Leah and Dylan. During this period, Blake made it a point to keep Leah informed about each development, each small step towards his exoneration. "I'm doing everything I can to ensure this ends soon and that we can start building something new, something better," he explained during their conversations. Leah, in turn, maintained a mix of caution and optimism. She saw the changes in Blake, his dedication to redeeming himself, and it made her consider the possibility of a future where Blake not only visited Dylan, but also played a more active role in his life. "The honesty and transparency you've shown mean a lot," Leah admitted during one of their conversations. "Dylan talks about you with affection, and that's something I couldn't have predicted a few years ago." While Blake faced justice, Leah continued to strengthen her friendships. Audrey remained a vital support in this process, always ready to help with Dylan or offer a friendly word when Leah felt the weight of responsibility. "You're building something wonderful here, Leah, not just for Dylan but for everyone," Audrey often remarked, proud of her friend's achievements. Audrey's support was a constant reminder to Leah that, regardless of the challenges, she was not alone. This support network became her strength, allowing her to navigate life's uncertainties with more confidence. Finally, after months of anxiety and uncertainty, the day of the verdict arrived for Blake. He, Leah, and a few close friends and family gathered in the courtroom, anxiously hoping for justice to prevail. When the judge declared Blake free of all charges, a collective sigh of relief was felt in the room. Blake was officially free to start anew, unburdened by legal accusations. He looked at Leah and Dylan, his eyes shimmering with tears of gratitude and relief. "Thank you for believing I could be better," he said to Leah, his voice choked with emotion. Leah smiled, acknowledging the long journey they had both traveled together and individually. "Now let's focus on the future," she replied, holding Dylan's hand. With Blake's acquittal and the easing of legal tensions, the family began to envision a new chapter in their lives. Blake was determined to make up for lost time and to build a solid relationship with Dylan, while also strengthening ties with Leah, who still hesitated about their future as a couple. Leah watched the changes in Blake with hope. She was impressed by his transformation and dedication, but part of her feared the possibility of new disappointments. However, Blake's consistent demonstrations of responsibility and affection began to break down the barriers she had built around her heart. "Blake, you've changed a lot. Dylan and we're starting to rely on you again, Leah confessed during a walk in the park as they watched Dylan play with friends. I just want to make sure we're doing what's best for him. Blake took her hand, his expression serious and sincere. I understand your concerns, Leah, and I promise I'll continue to do everything I can to be the man you both deserve. I don't just want to be a present father, I want to be someone you can trust and rely on. Inspired by Blake's sincerity, Leah began to allow him to be more involved in the daily decisions and upbringing of Dylan. Blake helped with schoolwork, actively participated in Dylan's extracurricular activities, and weekends became special family times filled with outings and small adventures together. Gradually, the relationship between Leah and Blake was rebuilt on a new foundation of respect, transparency, and love. Blake not only became an exemplary father for Dylan, but also a loving and attentive partner for Leah. On an autumn afternoon, while Dylan played in the garden of their home, Blake proposed to Leah that they renew their vows, symbolizing the new beginning and the future they wished to build together. Surprised and moved, Leah accepted. Her hopes for the future finally aligned with the reality they had worked so hard to create. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.